Hello and welcome to part 17 of the Snappy grammar course. Today we'll talk about some more conjunctions. In the last part we start with F words and similar conjunctions. And part 2 we'll talk about conditions and some temporal conjunctions. Part 3 then we'll just talk about any other conjunction. These next two videos are not really meant that you watch them incomplete. It's more like if you have questions about a conjunction, then you can look up the conjunction and see some examples of it and how it's used. Because these two videos are actually more like vocab videos where I show you the conjunctions that exist with some examples. Let's first talk about conditions with to and tsakrr. You can use to and tsakrr to make general conditions, so sentences like if the sun doesn't shine, the sky is dark. And then we use to with an if infix in the following clause, so to tsakrr if the sun doesn't shine, tsakrr then the sky is dark. Note that there is no if infix in the second clause, only in the first one. The tsakrr also is optional, so you don't need to have it in there. You can also just say you can also, of course, do future conditions. If you leave now, we will not be friends anymore, so in the future. So in this case, we have again an if infix in the first clause after to, and we have a future infix in the second clause, so lu becomes la you. And again, the tsakrr, of course, is optional. Like in English, I can say, if you leave now, then we will not be friends anymore. Or I can say, if you leave now, we will not be friends anymore. Lastly, the if infix can be left out in the to phrase. Look at these two examples. If you are tired, rest. In this case, I don't know if you are tired or not. I just maybe think you are tired, and so I suggest this. But now imagine that, for example, I heard you saying to someone else that you are tired. So then I can come to you and say, since you are tired, rest. So basically, if you are tired, rest, but the if condition is definitely true because I know that you are tired. So since you are tired, rest. Then we can also make conditions with soon and sel. They are used to make contrafactuals. These are conditions that are definitely not true. So, for example, if I was a bird, I would have beautiful wings. Of course, I'm not a bird, I'm a human. So this will never be true. So I would use soon and sel here. Soon oe livu yayo, sel livu wero mesial alor. The sel cannot be left out. So other than the tsakrr, the sel is always there. And you see we have an if infix in both parts. So we have soon oe livu yayo, sel livu wero mesial alor. But the if infix in the second clause can be left out, but only if both clauses are in the same tense. So in this case, we have just the if infix without any time infix in there. So because of that, I can leave out the if in the second sentence. Here's another example. Soon oe jaune limvu ngar, sel im vefu oe nitramne au. If you would have loved me, then I would have been so happy. Again, we have the same tense in both clauses. We have imv, which is a combination of the if infix and the am infix. And we have it in both clauses, in the soon and in the sel clause. And because it's the same in both, I can leave it out in the second. Here we have an example of a clause where it's not the same. Soon aioe livu tsamsiu, sel tsakem ge simvi. If we were warriors, then we would not have done that. So here we have present tense in the first clause, in the soon clause, soon aio livu tsamsiu, and we have past tense in the following clause, sel tsakem ge simvi. Then we would not have done that. And because we have two different tenses, we cannot leave out the infix in the second one. Soon and sel also are, for example, very often used when you're talking about something in the past. For example, if it would not have rained yesterday, then something would have happened. So this is where you will see soon and sel the most often. And lastly, let's talk about krra and tsakrr. When, then. Krra, when utasi, tsakrr, when ngaru pukiting. When we meet, then I give you the book. The tsakrr, of course, again, can be left out. Krra can also work the other way around, so we can also say akrrr instead. Here's an example sentence with that. Te engit wel tolel akrrr, ay ngaru payeng. When I received an answer, I will tell you. So ay ngaru payeng is the I will tell you. And then we have the thing when this happens, we have before. So te engit wel tolel akrrr, ay ngaru payeng. We could also move the sentence around and could say krra te engit wel tolel, when I received an answer, ay ngaru payeng. So it's exactly the same. And another example, krra pehem nekelku ayem wutsoti. When I arrive at home, I'll cook a meal. Let's look at srefwa versus srekrr versus sre. They all mean before, but what's the difference? Probably if you know a bit about some Natmi words, then you will already know this, but let's look at them together. First we have srefwa, before, which is a conjunction. Srefwa oehum neopivit e. Before I go, I want to talk. You will notice that it comes from srefwa, so before the thing which is. Srefwa oehum neopivit e, it means exactly the same. I mean, it's just, these two words just have become one over time. Then we have srekrr, before, already, ahead of time, which is an adverb. So, for example, srekrr oezene yivom, but before I have to eat. Or srekrr amefuveng, before I was thirsty. Set yeveng, now my thirst has been quenched, so now not thirsty anymore. And lastly, we have sre, which is an adposition, before something. It's a temporal adposition, so it means before in time, not before like in front of something. Sre ut a zene yivom oe. Before the meeting, I have to eat. Since it's an adposition, we can also put it behind the noun, so ut a sre zene yivom oe. Note that I marked it with a plus, which of course means that it causes lenition. In this case, there is no lenition because u is not one of the sounds that changes. Lenition applies to consonants. But for example, if we would have sre kamt on before midnight, there you hear that the kamt on would change into kamt on. So sre kamt on from kamt on. Let's look next at mawkrra, mawfwa, akrrmaw, and mawkrr and maw. Mawfwa tolaron wel yerikit, wel emtsnganit. After 100-jährig, I cook the food. So mawfwa, again, is our conjunction here. Mawkrra means exactly the same. They're actually interchangeable. Mawkrra tolaron wel yerikit, wel emtsnganit. After 100-jährig, I cook the food. And akrrmaw, again, is the same, but just with the a on the other side, which just means that we have to change the order a bit. So, tolaron wel yerikit akrrmaw wel emtsnganit. After 100-jährig, I cook the food. So these are just 3 different words we can use to build the same sentences. Mawkrra poholum oe efokeft o. Or, if I want to switch it around, pol holum akrrmaw oe efokeft o. I feel sad after he left. So here you see again what happens if we exchange mawkrra for akrrmaw. And next, let's look again at the other words. Mawkrr, obviously then again is our adverb, afterwards, after, later. Ne auve, wengal, yolom, wutsot, mawkrr, uvansi. First we had dinner, afterwards we played a game. Yerin, e a senume, a tsakrr oe, mawkrr, la yu, vaykrr ne ul. My teaching responsibilities will soon end. Afterwards, I will have more time. And you probably already guessed it, but maw then is our adposition. Neo yivom teluti maw ut a, or again ut amaw. I want to eat telu after the meeting. Let's look next at takrra or akrrta, since. This one comes from ta, from, and krr, time. Ailifja jaunu leru weru takrra evenglamu. I've loved languages since I was a child. And if you now want to use akrrta instead, again we just have to switch it around a bit. Evenglamu akrrta, ailifja jaunu leru weru. So, I was a child from that time on. Languages were beloved to me. Then we have also vaykrr. This one's a bit weird if you compare it to the others, because we had mawkrra being the conjunction, and srefwa and mawfwa being the conjunctions, and then we had mawkrr and srekrr being our adverbs, but in this case actually vaykrr is our conjunction. It comes from vay, up to, and again krr, time. That one you should probably know by now. Tulul o vaykrr na'ringftu. I ran until I left the forest. And we of course also have tengkrr, while. This one comes from teng, same, and krr, time. And we usually use it together with the er infix in the following clause, er being the unfinished action. So natvi ile ho'on kuk olem tengkrr rerol. The people were standing in a circle while singing. Or Fapet eni natvi tengkrr uvan seri lungesig. Speaking natvi while playing a game is hard. However, we have one example sentence, actually an official example sentence, where tengkrr is used without the er infix, namely this one. Me fo fetsap me pole yam tengkrr tsngauweg. The two of them hugged each other and wept, or while weeping basically. So there is this one example sentence. We don't know if it's an exception or if it's just most often with er. I just want to show you this so you know that it might not be a complete set rule with the er infix. Then we have tick, immediately without delay. First of all, tick means the same like rin, which is an adverb. So tick can actually also be used as an adverb. For example, tsakemsi tick, do it immediately. And you could also say tsakemsi rin, do it immediately. They mean exactly the same if they are used as adverbs. However, while rin is only an adverb, tick actually is also a conjunction. Feioang ketsuns livele, nemfa pai zup, tick spakat. This animal cannot swim. If it falls into the water, it immediately drowns. So literally, it falls into the water and then immediately drowns. Oeke gune tet au tick yom. I go home and then immediately eat. And a beautiful proverb that we can also hear in the second movie at the very beginning. Tsea tek yaune, love at first sight. Literally what it means is see and then immediately be loved. And lastly, I want to talk about sequential verb pairs, where we actually have no conjunction. So we can put two verbs in a sequence without any conjunction in between, like this. Za'u kat esiko. Let's come and then say hello. So you see, za'u kat esi then translates to something like come and then say hello. Pol umit nodek terkup. He drank that poison and then died. And now you maybe might be asking, but what's the difference between that and tick? And that you can see with the next sentence. Pol umit nodek tek terkup. He drank that poison and then immediately died. So tick always shows that something happens immediately after another action. With sequential verb pairs, if you don't have any conjunction, it can be anything. It can be that he immediately died. It can also be that he drank the poison and then the next day died. So it just means and then something else happened, but it doesn't show how fast or slow that happens. Here are two more examples. Zun nickel siwop zaung. So here we see that zun, the modal verb, influenced the siwop, but we actually don't have an even fix in the zaung. So it can fall on the ground and break. And we actually also have the next sentence, zun nickel siwop ziwaung. So here both get the even fix from the zun. It can fall on the ground and then can break. And that was already it for today. I hope this was helpful for you, and if you have any questions, like always, you can write it in the comments or contact me on Discord. Hi, Yellowvi!